cutting and pasting that thing you sent me, Greg, so I don't know how many folks we have already.
That's cool.
Just the stuff from Vic and from Sam.
Yeah, great.
I just wanted to print that out. That way I can look at the camera instead of hearing like I'm
That's great.
reading emails. I'm going to be doing that with the governor's directive. Oh my. Seem to bring up everything with that. Great. Okay. Sort of. What do we have? All right. Not too bad. Okay. Do we want to, what do we have? What is it? It's 6:31. Do you want to wait?
Let's wait 2 minutes. We can
Wait till 6:35?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
For those of you hanging in there, we're going to start about 6:35. Give folks a little more time to join us. But it's nice to see everybody here.
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Wow.
See?
We ask and we shall receive.
I was going to say, that was good.
Wow.
That was good.
Look at that. Wow. Okay. All righty. This is great, man. I'll tell you, this is better than those days when Larry and I were over to Lenox Hill. It's like 4 of us.
Good.
Let's see here. Okay. Oh, there we go. That's the good gallery. Right.
I know you guys said you wanted to wait till
6:35?
6:35, but everybody who's signed up is in the room.
Here?
All right.
Are here? Okay. All right, then we will start then, won't we? All right, I'll start. Welcome, everybody. My name's Ed Hartzog with Greg Morris. We are co-chairs with Barbara Chaki of the Housing Committee. Welcome to the September 2021 meeting. Just very quickly before we start, those of you on the board, those of you in the public who know our co-chair, Barbara Chaki, she is not with us this evening. I spoke with her a couple times this week. I know some of you have seen her. She has an illness that she's battling. Our thoughts and our prayers are with her. I'm sure everyone here is thinking of her, and I just told her that I would send that out and hope everyone is thinking of her. And if you have a chance to call her or talk to her, please do. I know she would very much appreciate the call, even if you don't go over there. So thank you all very much for that. Thank you also as well for the support all around. Anyway, so moving on. So those of you who have been with us before, we are back. We are looking to Greg and I have been talking. We've been talking with Barbara. Look, new day, new era. COVID, the heck with COVID. It's enough already. It's enough. I'm going off here. Greg and I talked about this. He's letting me carry the first half, so I'm going to editorialize a little bit. It's enough already with COVID. We are going to do something effective for this community, come hell or high water, via the housing committee. And Greg and I have talked about this. I'm going to offer up very quickly thoughts that all of us know. Vic Bach and Sam Stein, two great advocates at Community Service Society, sent out some ideas for us on advocacy. I'm going to talk about those very quickly, not like a speed talker like those old ads, but I'm just going to tell you right now, just throw them out there. Greg and I have two ideas that we really would like to talk about with the end result. I'm going to be a spoiler alert here. Greg and I, both of us, because he's right next to me as I'm looking, we are looking for action. We are looking for effectiveness. We are looking to get something tangible in the hands of this community right away. And what we're thinking about is, well, I'll tell you that little teaser first. We'll talk about Sam and Vic, and then we'll tell you what we're thinking about. So Sam and Vic suggested.
And Ed, if we could just say,
yes.
Sam and Vic, when we originally set the agenda for this meeting, they were scheduled. There has been some change, so they're not able to join us tonight. In its place, they have sent some recommendations, some thoughts, and they have committed to coming back and joining us at a later date. They send their regards. And again, this is just related to having scheduled them at one time, and the months have kind of gone by and lives have changed and shifted a little bit. So they send their regards, their apologies. They're going to come and join us. But in their stead, as Ed has pointed out, they've sent some thoughts for us to start reflecting on, because when they come to the table, they're going to say, if you're interested in this, here's what you need to do. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Greg. That's great context. Thank you so much for filling that in. Thank you. I was so excited about our ideas. I'm just plowing ahead, but thank you for that context. So no, that's great. So under one of the headings, there's three headings here, under inventory potential development / conversions in CB8. Three ideas talking about the vacant lots and properties, underused parcels. I know on the campaign trail for mayor, Scott Stringer, our comptroller, was talking about this. Available public land, e.g. NYCHA developments, open space. Also, Greg may be touching on this later, any hotels available for residential conversion. Second heading, inventory available resources for housing. Is upzoning an option in CB8? Are there development rights that can be transferred to potential sites from NYCHA from other parcels?
Ed, hold on a second. Will, can I share my screen? I have that. I can show everybody so they can see it. So
Yeah,
while you're reading it,
great.
you can refer.
Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Even
sorry.
better. That's great. So I'll read through it while Greg shares his screen. Terrific. Thank you. Even better.
Yep.
I'll get going because I'd rather spend most of the meeting really talking about ideas and substance. So
Yeah, I just want folks to be able to see it. So
yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm on so you see, thank you, Greg, so much. So I'm at the third point here, folks, on the preserve at-risk assisted housing. Inventory, federally subsidized or Mitchell Lama developments. I think a member of our committee talks about Mitchell Lama. She may know a thing or two about that are at risk of expiration and buyout, work with tenants to press for preservation. Inventory NYCHA developments, options for restoring decent residential living conditions, work with residents to obtain improvements. This is where we're going to jump off, is advocacy. Link with national and local housing advocacy groups, obviously increased money for low-income housing, universal Section 8 vouchers, capital commitments for public housing, ending 421A tax benefits to developers in favor of direct government subsidies. Finally, encouraging local landlords to accept voucher recipients, not to discriminate against them. And then you see the end of that. Just as a quick aside on that last part, I've seen a recent interview with Richie Torres, and he seems to have a real thing going on this Section 8 and making this maybe part of what the president is doing. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I think Greg is talking about the governor's proposal on conversions. But before we get to that, I'd like to talk about something that is on everyone's mind and we see a lot of all the time, and that is this rental assistance. I don't have it on my screen, and please forgive me. I pulled it up this afternoon, and I think that's one of the reasons why our agenda keeps kind of changing is the ever-changing nature of what's going on with COVID and rental assistance. And we'd like to talk to you about the rental assistance program. I know there's been a lot of talk about the fact that there's all this money and it's not getting in people's hands. And that is of tremendous frustration to me personally. I know that I'm not alone in this. It's just, I know this is a public meeting and being recorded, but I know it's not criminal, okay? I know it's not criminal, but I'm just saying for rhetorical purposes, it seems almost criminal that all this money is sitting around available. And I know, again, this is not news, but I'd like to see, because the governor put out something 2 weeks ago about this money. It now apparently is the New York State is now ranked first nationally in payments made or obligated with more than $1.2 billion for this money. And I won't read through all the press release, but it seems to be that the governor is trying as best she can to get this money that is either queued up, sitting somewhere, out into the hands of people in our community. And I would just like to throw it out there for discussion and not hear from me, but from the community, both Greg and I think everybody in the community, is what we can do as a community board housing committee. And I was at the environment committee. I'm on the environment sanitation committee. I was there last night. They were talking about this. The folks they had were talking about the consolidation of effort. And I think that dovetails nicely here. I know we didn't talk about housing and environment last night. I think the reason they weren't talking about the housing committee is that we don't probably have as many low-level basements, although I don't know that would be affected by the kind of inland flooding they were talking about necessarily. That's not the point. What I'm thinking about here is the collaboration effect in this housing assistance. One of the biggest problems that we have had is that it seems the landlords and the tenants are at some sort of loggerheads in the way in which this money gets out. And that is incredibly frustrating to me as someone who studied public administration, that the money is there, people want the money, the landlord wants the money, and yet nothing's happening. I'm sorry, me personally, it kind of is a little infuriating. I don't understand. I understand not getting money allocated. So what I'd like us to talk about, and I'm going to stop here in about 10 seconds for the night, is how this smart group of folks, how can we do something tangible? And by that, I'm talking about real assistance, real knowledge, real things, whether that's setting up a weekend clinic or pulling in some local attorneys or whoever it may be. I know our local elected officials do rental, et cetera, et cetera. That's all well and good. This is focused, combined business, renters, something tangible, getting money in people's hands, having an effect instead of bloviating all that we do, me included. We're going to do something, going to get something tangibly done. That's it for me, gang. You won't hear another 30 seconds out of me for the rest of the night. I'm kicking it over to Greg and to the rest of this very, very smart group. Very happy to see all of you here. I'm thrilled. So I'm going to mute myself. Okay, so I can't even interrupt you.
He just muted himself. Did you just mute yourself before now you're still talking, we can't hear you.
I'm muting myself to stop bloviating just like that so that I'm here. Believe me, I'll jump in, but I'm stopping. It's out to you all. We want to hear your ideas.
Thank you, Ed. And I'm going to suggest that Ed will likely weigh in as the night goes on, and when he feels up to it, he will. But I appreciate the starting point. It's great to see everybody here tonight. And we've already got some hands up. So let's just to kind of reframe this. Vic Bach and Sam Stein had some recommendations. Ed's throwing out, hey, here's another thing, the rental assistance program, the dollars aren't reaching folks. What are we gonna do about that? And the starting point really being, where are your heads at? What do you think are the best suggestions moving forward? And I think that's in alignment with some of the things we've talked about in the past. So I see some hands up. Floor is yours. Rita Popper, go ahead and start us off.
And I'm just going to remind everybody, if you have not been to our meetings before, just look for the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. Press the raise hand button there if you would like to participate, or you may need to go to the participants section at the bottom of your screen and find the raise hand button there if you'd like to participate. And you can always chat me if you're having problems finding that. Go ahead, Rita.
A question. I'm a tenant leader in my building and we have 577 apartments. Really, one's 78, one's for the super. And I'm sure that there are some people who were not able to pay their rent during this time. However, I don't know that they haven't asked for anything. So I'm asking, have you talked to the elected officials where people go when they need a problem solved? And what do the elected officials tell them? My question.
The question, Rita, once again, is talking to the elected, have folks talk to the elected officials? Is that the question, Rita?
Yeah, I mean, we can't go out on the street and ask people, did you pay your rent or you didn't pay your rent, right?
Right.
That's sort of not nice. So we should know who those people are who can't pay their rent and why haven't they gotten the money. I am assuming, and one should never assume, that people who are in this situation have gone to someone for the money. And what happened? So where they go?
Yep.
Where can we go?
So, maybe a starting point is sort of exploring who has made an effort to access, what has happened when they have, what are the elected officials, or what are the folks who've not been able to access, what are they saying, what are they responding to, what are they hearing, what are they experiencing, and wanting to follow up on those pieces. That's a great starting point, Rita. Thank you. Peggy Price, I see your hand up.
Hi, thanks very much. Rita's entirely correct. I think, though, one way to get the attention of elected officials and the public at large, and maybe get some action on this, is to reach out to the press. That's one way that tends to get the elected officials' attention. They're the ones that have the power to get the money to the people that need it. If we have some data, maybe we could find a couple of case studies and get the media's attention. I think it's one expeditious way to begin to alleviate the problem. I'd be glad to help if there is some way to do that. But I do think we ought to consider this.
So one tangible action item here might be to say to the electeds who come at our community board meetings to say, we want, and when you're doing your reports on a monthly basis, we want to hear any progress, any reaction, any updates specific to rental assistance. Like that just could be something that we hold them accountable, meaning we don't need to ask the question. We can say it in advance. This is something we want to make sure that the electeds are reporting out on. How does that sound?
Well, I do. I think
if I could jump in real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Peggy, on the press front. Look, this issue is already in the press. With all due respect, the world knows about this problem. I guess where I'm going, and I think on if I may, just for a second, Peggy, is that the press maybe in terms of how I want to drill down on what Rita said in terms of with the electeds. What's the process? I think is where I want to go. Is
that's right.
That's where I'm really going here. Is what is the governor set up, and maybe Liz Kruger and Senator Serrano are the people to talk to. And Rita's a great point. And Rita and Peggy, I don't mean to cut you off here. And maybe on the press front is press on what the process is, because no one knows. That's why I'm drilling it. Is no one knows anything about this application. I mean, I haven't even seen it. I don't know anybody who's. Do we have anybody on our community board who has even tried to fill this thing out? I don't know anybody who has. See, that's what I'm trying to get at is who's filled this out? Who's dealt with this? And I think to your point, Peggy, and I want to hear more about this on press, is on the press front, how to fill out the form, more or talk about that. I'm sorry to stop. I'll stop.
Well, how do we know that there are so many? Do we have data on how many people are being left out in the cold by not getting these rental assistance amounts, or what is the?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Great
I think it's the kind of thing that we could go to, again, the electeds who are at our community board meetings. We could talk to them in advance about, saying to them, the housing committee is interested in receiving a report on what you've experienced. Who's coming, who's asking, what is the process as far as you know it, and report out to us and tell us what progress they've made or what issues are coming up. And again, make it a part of a practice that at community board meetings, one of the things, again, they come with a laundry list of report outs. I'm not asking for a Q&A. It's more like, as part of the report outs, those elected offices could make a point of talking to us about this, and we can lay the groundwork for that by reaching out to C. Wright's office and others and saying, the housing committee is really interested in this. We really want to know what you're experiencing, what you're aware of is the process, what steps are being taken, and what your office is doing to help people out. Does that help us sort of check off some boxes here?
Well, if I may say one last thing, is there some resolution we can pass to put some bones behind this? It seems to me that we need to do something very concrete other than place a phone call or something,
Well, I think making the communication, I think making part of the practice I think communicating an expectation that there's a report out on this particular topic. I would hope that would be received. But again, if there's a resolution or a desire to move towards one, feel free. Ed, I'm sorry, you're trying to jump in.
No. I think, no, Peggy, to your price, to your point, sorry, is you're absolutely right. I was looking queued up while you were speaking. There's the one advantage of Zoom is that you can have the computer right there while you're speaking. Is I'm reading through this, and it just reads that again, this press release from the governor on the 15th, beginning Wednesday, I guess it's about a week ago, the state is accepting applications for rental assistance from households adversely impacted by the pandemic. So to your very point, Peggy, maybe we could reach out to our electeds, because it looks like it's only households that are at 80 to 100% of AMI. So that is, to your very salient point, we can narrow down the field right there. There we go. That's our target market right there, right? Households at 80 to 100, at least for right now, is to that, maybe. I don't know, just sort of throwing it out there and trying to maybe reaching out to the electeds, asking them before the next meeting, because again, that's going to be a while from now, is finding out how many households we have that are at 80 to 120. Maybe if we could get a copy of the application, maybe we could talk to the folks at small business. I see Alita's here. She chairs the small business committee. Maybe we could set up something with renters and business folks or landlords and kind of work through this application. I mean, I don't really know anything about this application. And I mean, all I hear when I hear national people talking about this and New York people talking about it is that it's very onerous. In New York, you time out, you get on this thing, you start filling out the application, and if you don't do it in time, it doesn't save. So it takes a lot of time. You have to work with the landlord. There's a lot of documentation. It's very difficult. And as a result, nothing happens. And I find it frustrating. I hear a lot of frustration. There's all this money queued up, ready to go out the door. And that's kind of what I'm driving at. And I mean, you're making some great points, Peggy. So maybe we target the market like you suggested. Maybe it's to that. We could find that number. I don't know.
Let's see if we can have some others jump in. Alita Camp, I see you in the corner.
Sorry, I see that Sandrea has her hand up. I know she's very active in housing, so I will cede my time to her if you'll come back to me afterwards.
Sure.
Sandrea Coleman has the floor.
Well, thank you, Alita. I don't know who Ann was up first, Nita, but that's okay.
I was going left to right on my screen, just so you know. I was just going left to right. That's all I was doing.
Okay.
Sandrea.
On your radio dial, defending the Hoffa and
that's all I'm doing. Go ahead, Sandrea. Sorry.
I think one of the questions that we need to find out is how ERAP is responding to applicants, right? So as people apply, there's a waiting period to my understanding, but are they informing them of the stages? Like, are you in a waiting stage? What's next? And what is the turnaround time to know if you're approved or not, because if you're not approved, then you have to go another route to try to, you know what I'm saying? Get your assistance. I also understand that public assistance is sending people, directing them to ERAP. Because they, you know, with ERAP, they don't have to pay the funds back.
That's right.
So that's what we probably need to find out. I believe, to my understanding, elected officials do have the information out there on their website, and they're, you know, it's on their mailers, and, you know, they're doing like clinics, some of them virtual things, but are people really listening? You know, are people really finding out? So I think that's one of the main things we have to find out. What's the turnaround time? Are they responding? Like, you put the application in, what's the feedback? Yes, I'm sure you get an email back, but is there anything else after that? Because you're in limbo. So that's it.
I mean, listen, I can tell you, I have a request in with the Supreme Court down at 60 Center Street for a preliminary conference, supposed to be kicked out in 45 days. I'm blowing into 65 days at this point. So I hear you. Maybe they're having the same problem with ERAP.
Thank you, Sandrea. Alita Camp. How about now?
Thank you. So I think a one-on-one clinic kind of thing would be good. Greg, remember when we had the voting little booth by Stanley Isaacs, and people worked from the borough president's office, from the community board, worked with residents to fill out applications for voting or other things. I think that could really help. Rebecca Seawright has a housing clinic. Some of those lawyers might be available. The New York City Bar Association has lists of lawyers or clinics. Maybe they would be willing to spend some time doing that. But it seems that, especially if the time's out the way Ed described, which is horrible, if someone works with a paper application and just types in the information without having to think about it, that would maybe fit within the time frame. The other thing is, and this is a different subject, is that the public-private partnerships, whatever they are, don't seem to work. The ones who benefit are the private entities, the for-profit entities, and the ones who suffer are the public. It seems that the government needs to be involved in affordable housing issues the way they were with, I grew up partly in Co-op City and Mitchell Lama, and housing. I mean, I know they're doing a disastrous job with NYCHA, but building it is, it just seems to be a government job. And when they give it over to private enterprise that gets a lot for it, and it's only 30 years worth of affordable housing, that doesn't seem to be satisfactory. So I know, and Ed, you were with me at this press conference a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago. Scott Stringer had a press conference and said there were 1,000 parcels of city-owned land around the city. And then he said he was surprised that the city said there were 600 that they could build on. There are not-for-profit affordable housing developers, and it would seem that that would be a much more viable and acceptable way to go. So the public-private partnerships, I think, are not good. And so that's my weigh in on that. And thank you for your time. But I would urge some kind of clinic to go back to square one. Thanks.
Okay. Russell, you're up next. Russell Squire.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to make the brief point that I think in addition to getting info from elected officials, we can also get it from the state agency. I think they may have breakdowns, geographic breakdowns that are going to be useful in terms of getting just applicant numbers and payout numbers.
Good thought. Okay. I see Rita Popper.
I don't know if we are, there is a double-edged sword here. We have people who are in their apartments who have not been able to pay their rent. And we have people who are not in apartments who are looking to put a roof over their heads. So we have two different things going. There is a man, I'm not going to pronounce your last name because I will murder it, Andrew, who spoke last night at Zoning and Development as to how many affordable houses were lost in CB8. I don't remember the timeline, but I would like to cede my time to Andrew. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Andrew.
Andrew's hand is up, so I think he's ready.
All right. Floor is yours, Andrew.
Hi, thank you very much, Rita. And then also, my last name gets butchered all the time, so however you want to pronounce it is okay with me. Manhattan from 2007 to 2019 lost approximately 23,000 apartment units. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I've said them enough times. I know it's around 23,000. And in the CB8 district alone, it was around 14,000 over that 12-year period, which is the most out of any of the community districts in Manhattan. Thank you.
That seems to make sense.
Rita, thank you for teeing that up. Andrew, thank
Yeah.
you for the facts.
Yeah.
And I saw Barbara's hand was up. Barbara, did you want to jump in? Oh, maybe we lost. Barbara, did you want to jump in or no? No, it's Barbara.
I don't know. Rita, your
Yeah.
hand is up? Or-
I did. It was always a couple of things to say. One of the things was already said. I said maybe somebody should start filling out the form just to try it and see, so that they would know how to help other people. But I think Alita talked about having the clinic, which I think was even a better idea than that generally. But somebody has to know how to do it. I don't know if this has to do, the number of affordable houses that we lost have something. I mean, there is a connection. One of the things I brought up that really is a disturbance for me is it's not only the number of apartments, but the length of time. So I'll just give my favorite place, the one on 86th Street between 2nd and 1st, and Extell, I think it's Extell building, that goes all the way to 1st Avenue and down 85th Street. That it has to be 10 years that those apartments have been empty. There's now one man living there and a couple of the buildings owned by somebody else. We have lost not just over 100 apartments that I've guesstimated by looking at it, but over 100 apartments for 10 years. And I think that if we do something that was suggested last night at zoning, to say that we should press to say you have to build within a certain amount of time, or I don't know what, you're going to get taxed or whatever, there would be less time that we would be without affordable housing.
To that point, Barbara, if I may, having dealt with developers in Virginia who buy property and put up housing, not apartments, but housing, same kind of concept. I take your point. It's a great one because we have the same problem at 72nd and 2nd Avenue. Where the church went down, right? The problem is that it really comes down to the people bankrolling the real estate people. So as long as they can pay the debt for the money they borrowed to buy the land, to hold it long enough, to clear it out, to put up the building that they want, I think,
I'm not ready because I'm now also co-chair of the Environment Committee, which will be big, and we will be calling on the Housing Committee to do something. So Ed, stay tuned. You will be.
Okay. All right.
But they also are evidently rat traps. That's where a lot of the rats are evidently coming from, the empty. I saw it today. I mean, they're disgusting.
Driving them out.
One of the things that drove me crazy is that the ads go. I was there when a man was putting up these 10-foot ads for Gucci or one of those places, some high-end place, all over. We complain when there's one ad in a bus stop, and I'm all for complaining about that. This is our whole neighborhood is now filled with these plywood places are filled with it. It is a lose-lose-lose situation. And I think that to sit back and just say, well, we have nothing to do about it, we have to start fighting for it.
I could not agree with you more, Barbara. I think Greg and I are in full accord with you on that. Again, we're dealing with now, and I've heard this around the campfire, my other world and not community board, my regular work. Rumor around the campfire is that there are large chunks of real estate folk out there who have gotten a lot of money and they're looking for return on their investments. I am not an iBanker, I'm just a humble attorney, but from what I hear, people in that world talk that there are large groups of real estate people looking for return on their dollar beyond what we're getting in interest rates because of the low rates, right? They're looking for a return, and the best way to do it is in real estate. Large, you know this. And everybody on this call knows.
How are they affording? I mean, Excel could afford anything, I assume. But here they have this empty lot with no stores in it, no people paying anything. They must be paying some tax. I don't know. Are they getting
They're
taxed?
paying on the loan. I'm with you 1,000%, Barb. This is why I think people ask when they come. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I asked and have been asking since I became co-chair is, and it's very difficult, is saying, look, we'd love to have this discussion with you. You know, show us what it is that you're dealing with so we know what to ask for in terms of how much money you're really dealing with. But again, they guard that information so much. And I'll be honest with you, the only thing I've gleaned in being on this community board for 11 years and being a geek and finally just digging in and reading these 200-page applications is what I've discovered, and it helped me in Virginia selling property to developers, is that it appears generically that land as a fixed cost is roughly somewhere between 30 and 40% of the real cost. And I will tell you, just as a quick aside, when I became co-chair with Larry Hockert years ago, some of you will, both sides you will laugh at this. The first person I called was Shelley Friedman. You go, holy cow, he called Shelley
Very
Friedman.
knowledgeable.
I called Shelley Friedman and we had lunch because Shelley Friedman was regional manager of administrator for HUD in Boston during the Carter administration. And I called him and I said, Shelley, now I'm co-chair of housing. How do we build affordable housing in New York? And he said to me years ago that one of the great ways we did this, those of you who've been here a long time, remember, with the Koch administration, because things got so crummy in New York, they cleared those lots, urban renewal. They just, everybody had moved out, kind of like you're talking about. Everybody moved out and they came in and they just knocked things down. That's what he said. Now, I don't know in the current world, but I just throw that out there to you. I don't know if that helps or not, but I just throw it out as more information cost-wise, because I'm with you, Barbara. If we could find out those numbers, I think that would help us a great
I
deal.
don't know if it's numbers, I think, and I don't want to talk to the developers. We know they're obviously going to be against it. I think there's some legislation may say you have to have a plan. I mean, you could talk to Anthony. I talked to Anthony and Anthony has some ideas that you have to have a plan beforehand before you can start raising a building or something, because I mean, this affects lots of things. Environment is the rats and so on. But in terms of affordable housing, it is outrageous. Just look at that one building. We have a building where the Voodoo Lounge was. It's been so long that the trees are now full-grown trees in this area.
Right. I know.
There's something absurd about this.
Question.
And we're all taking it.
I think Greg and I are at the point, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, Greg. I think we're kind of at the point that we're at, what was the guy's name in Network? We're at the point of go and open the window.
The mad as hell. I'm not going to take it
Mad as
anymore.
hell. Peter Finch. We're at the Peter Finch moment. We're at the Peter Finch moment. Where so anyway, Rita, I see your hand up, or Barbara. I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't know if you.
I've been saying this over and over again.
I'm sorry.
Don't want to cut you off.
And before Rita jumps in, I do want to say, did the Extel project, which Barbara just referenced, there was a story in Patch.
Yes.
2 weeks ago about that project and the developer sort of having filed some sort of action because their desire to do whatever work they're planning to do is being blocked. And it's being blocked because there's a current tenant that lives at one end of that sort of area who is and you referenced this, Barb, is like the one remaining tenant. And Extel has said it's looking to build hundreds of apartments. That's what they're trying to do, and that they're not able to do it because they haven't been able to knock out this one other building. The person who's there is saying, you've been very secretive. We don't really know what you're going to do in this particular space, right? So all that to say.
And I've known for a while because there was a soup kitchen in there that I was about. Alita remembers what I called her up one day and said, you have to come and look at this, right, Alita? And we knew that the other buildings were owned by somebody else, but we don't know, except it was sort of creepy people, I think.
So in any case, that's a story from 2 weeks ago. And it seems like there's a bit of a holding pattern there right now.
For 10 years. Anyway, I'll keep quiet.
No,
I'll
we're
mute
good.
longer
No,
than
no.
Ed muted, I
No.
promise.
No.
He's doing
please,
great. He's
not at
doing
all.
great.
Should I know Rita, you're up next, but we have a board member who hasn't spoken before. Ima? Yes? Ima, yes? Am I pronouncing that wrong?
No, you're pronouncing it right. That's incredible. Most people don't know what
got
to
lucky.
do.
I got lucky.
I got
Like a broken
like
clock.
a broken clock, you know,
Right twice.
right twice today.
Okay, going back to the rent relief program, if you want a sampling of people who need this urgently, my complex, I don't know if you guys know, just came, a couple of years ago, came out of 421A. So you have elderly people who are now either in retirement or going into retirement, struggling. Most of them have have been able to pay their rent, but they've had to go without in other areas. So you have people who are fearful of not paying their rent because they'll be homeless, they'll kick them out. Or, it's crazy. So I think we need workshops to let people know how to go about it. A lot of people, I don't know if the problem with this program is that you have to be in arrears. You have to be in arrears. Right. So if you're not in arrears, but you're struggling, there's really no help for you.
Am I wrong? Also, you have to also have. I think my microphone's a little slow, so I apologize. Is it also true that we have to have the landlord cooperating with you on this? Because there's a lot of, it's very document heavy, which I understand, to Barbara's point. That's what I think is the hard part. There's so many documents.
Yeah, I know. In our case, a lot of people who had SCREE and DREE are no longer getting SCREE and DREE because we're no longer rent regulated. So, could you imagine going from paying $900 or $1,000 to now paying $2,500 and $3,000 rent, which is what's happening? This year, they're starting on 12% increases. They were 12%? Giving us 10% increases, and now they're giving us 12% increases. And we've tried talking to the elected officials. All of them have been, on board in terms of signing on to letters that we sent, but no one has helped us actually bring the landlords to the table to try to negotiate.
This is what I'd like to on with my microphone. I don't know if it's bothering everybody else.
You're back to normal now.
Okay. It's actually from Ema's, so I'm just muting her while you're talking.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ema. No, I was going to say this is exactly the point, Ema, is exactly that. And look, with all due respect to our elected officials, I love them, whatever they can do for us. But, having worked in the legislature, they'll letter you to death. And you'll be out of, what I'm saying? Like, it's all great, but letters, it's like people say thoughts and prayers, and that's great. But, I need more than thoughts and prayers and letters. Can we unmute Ema?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I think the people here at Normandy Court would be helped by having workshops. I don't know that everybody knows what's available to them,
Okay.
It's a tangible action item. That sounds
good. Thank you, Ema. That's great. Rita?
Uma, if you have a pencil, if not, you could email me. You need legal help. And the person I suggest, because he has done this for several places, including mine, is a Jeffrey Reich, R-E-I-C-H. And his phone number is 212-743-7020. And you could tell him that Rita Papa suggested that you call him. This is all his law firm, this is what they do, and he may know of a way to help you. I'm not saying this is in any way not along with other programs, but it's time to get a lawyer.
Right. Can we unmute?
Yeah, let's unmute Ema.
I had one more thing to say.
Oh, go ahead, Rita. And then we're going to go back to Ema, if that's okay. Go ahead.
I think what Barbara has voiced, we have been voicing for a long time, and I'm so glad that she brought it up to the forefront. I would like to take one specific piece of land, and I don't think it belongs to Extell. It is the southwest corner of 78th Street and First Avenue. It has, the fence around it, the plywood fence, and ailanthus trees will grow any place. This is completely overgrown. However, the house abutting this land to the west is empty, full of rats, and also squatters.
Great.
There'll be danger. The windows are broken. It is a blight on the neighborhood. What I think I would love to see done is that we get this particular landlord, what is he doing? And and also to Barbara, they were putting up billboard stuff to only make the place look worse. It really looks like a third world country. And this is not a very big piece of land, but I am assuming he's waiting for the brownstone or the low-rise house going south on First Avenue. But at any rate, there's no reason that we have to put up with this. I mean, this is not an empty lot.
The trees on that lot, right, Rita? There are trees growing behind those trees coming out of that lot now.
The trees were, to show you how old it is, the trees were never there.
Right. They weren't there.
And they are,
Huge.
I am not exaggerating. They reach the second story.
Oh yeah. I
So,
walked by that.
how do we find out who owns the land? And maybe show them that a community board can do something. It's just a suggestion.
Is there any, I mean, is Barbara Rudder still with us? Is there any kind of like a nuisance thing we could file here, Barbara, with the 1-9 on behalf of the community on that? I mean, I don't know if there's nuisance on that. Russell, I see you're here. Alita's still here. I'd have to go back to bar exam days, remembering nuisance and all those kinds of things. But is there anything we could do with respect to that? Because I know you're right, Rita. I mean, it's just a blight. That whole corner, Marco's been talking about that for years now. At 78th Street, they knocked it down. I see Barbara's back. Maybe, Barbara, we were talking about filing some sort of nuisance thing at 78th and First Avenue. It's an absolute eyesore and it's out of control. Is there something we can do? Please, I see you waving your hand.
Please add the 86th Street. Please, please, please. That is disgusting there. Come and look. I'll walk with you and show you.
But is there something we could do with the sanitation folks? Is there a complaint we can file? Is there, we have Will do it through the board office or Russell or whoever?
I don't know what's legal and what's not. They now have one of their boards is off, and I looked in, the inside is disgusting. So I was able to actually see it where you usually can't because it's off, and the ads were off, which means probably new ones are coming up. So I think that the ads can't be legal on there. I mean, is it? I don't know what's legal and what's not.
I don't know. I thought
about it's dirty. It's the rats. And I don't know what to complain about.
So for the rats,
listen to me. I'll be glad to complain.
Russell, I don't know if we have standing without being the next door neighbor. I don't know that. You know what I mean? I don't know if since we're not directly affected. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like if
I agree. I mean,
right?
I don't think we do in all likelihood. I don't think that our board independently has standing to make a nuisance claim. But to the extent that At times, there have been complaints about rats coming out of these empty lots. That is something we can complain about because that's something the property owner is responsible for abating. So basically what you would need to do, I mean, unfortunately, it requires, 311 reports of rats, which people don't do. But if we can get reports there, then the Department of Health will actually come. And if they verify that there's rats there and it's a problem, they can cite them for that aspect of it. But in terms of just those sort of broader unsightliness of it, I don't think, I mean, I don't, like you, I don't deal with nuisance a lot, but I don't think that we can bring a nuisance lawsuit.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, ugly. Up till now, ugly is not illegal. I'm sorry.
For better or worse, that's it.
For better or worse, right? For better or worse. Rita or Alita?
Thank you. I did go over there with Barbara. It's a
Yep.
huge site on First Avenue. It's enormous, and it's been like this for years. But did I hear correctly that there is potential legislation that would stop the warehousing of these buildings or stop the raising of them without a plan? Did I not hear that correctly?
I don't know.
Not aware of that.
Oh, I thought you were
We'll
talking.
have to look into it. I don't know that one.
I thought you were talking about that. Maybe it's possible to just have, and I don't know if this is actually, to my ignorance, I'm embarrassed, if it's possible to have a resolution urging legislators to pass something about tearing down these buildings, because Andrew's right. If in fact the board office commissioned that work that was done by George Janes that showed 14,000 units were lost because these walk-ups are torn down and what's replaced are large 3 to 5 bedroom, in many instances, apartments. And that's just, while the smaller ones are being lost, and it's just wrong what's going on. And the ability of landlords to make these spaces vacant, not only do we lose the housing, but we lose the small businesses that also make up the community and the affordable small businesses, because what's replaced with these developments are unaffordable businesses because of the rent being so high. So they work in synergy, and it's a problem. I won't get on my bandwagon, but there's just too much of the city is beholden to real estate interests, and they clearly don't have affordable housing or communities in mind. So anyway, I'll stop there.
I think we can look into whether or not there's some sort of legislative item or some sort of topic. We can take a look at that first and see if there's anything out there and follow up on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
I see Wendy Keever is here. Am I pronouncing that right, Wendy? Saw you at the street fair. Great to have you here.
Nice to see you. It's McIver. It rhymes with
sorry.
Inbacker. What can I say?
No, I'm 50-50. I'm 50-50 for the night. Sorry. I should have stopped at Wendy.
Yep. Yeah, it's all good. I think I'm the only Wendy here. I think, the economics for the developers is it makes sense for them to knock buildings down as quickly as they can because it lowers the value of the property without an improvement on it. And so they pay a lower tax rate. In addition, they're not it won't be possible to have a community call on them to keep affordable housing there because the buildings are all gone, and it changes the denominator for calculations of what is affordable, how many rent stabilized units were in the area, because Gary Barnett has said on the Extel site between 79th and 80th on First Avenue that he can hold on for 10 years. And in that time, if it's only a 5-year look back or a 3-year look back for what rates were or for how many units were affordable, people who have been displaced are certainly not going to be counted. They don't have any hope of coming back to their old neighborhood and their old friends and everything that they knew and perhaps grew up with. So that's one thought. The other thought was, I was asking for a long time for Ben Kalos to put forth legislation, and maybe he wasn't the right one, maybe it's on the state level, for a moratorium. I mean, let's actually take a look, but let's have the time to take a look before these buildings do get knocked down in the middle of the night for the 4 and 5 story buildings, whether you call them tenements or brownstones, we know what we're talking about, the ones that especially have lined Second Avenue and parts of First Avenue and even parts of York, the ones that, we traditionally knew if we've been here forever in New York City. I was born and raised here, and have a moratorium on that, because that is where our units were lost. That's where the 14,000 in our area were lost by the knockdown of those units, one block after block after block. So now people have been displaced. I know some elderly people who were in walk-ups on Second Avenue and who were actually hoping, this is years ago now, on 84th Street and First Avenue, there's a very tall building on the southeast corner. And they were supposed to be affordable units that were for people of low income in the area. And she applied and she died before anything ever happened. It was years and years and years she was on the waiting list. There was a guy who testified at one of Ben Kalos's First Friday hearings that there's a lot of ways of manipulating those affordable units on the part of developers. They can put in their recent college grad kids or other people who are going to leave in 2 years, and then they can raise the rates under the various formulations until they approach market rate. And also the affordable, we talked about this at other meetings just this week, the affordable calculation alone is really skewed. If you're counting apartments, luxury apartments on wherever in this area, in the calculation of what people are paying in rents, it certainly knocks out all of the people who were displaced, which is a terrible thing for a community of people who built up this area and made it a safe place for hardworking people. So I just wanted to throw those two things in about looking for a moratorium, at least if we just to move the needle a little bit, and really what the economics for the developer is in the most immediate sense. I will throw in the other thing. In the olden days, the calculation was that a developer would build a building and sell the improved units at a profit. Now that may not really be so much of the calculation. They get a developer's fee, and that's where they're going to make back a lot of money. And if the project goes bankrupt, in the not technical sense, not in the declaring bankruptcy sense, but in the almost there sense, the bank doesn't really want to foreclose. They'd rather let it ride, because while it's riding, it still looks like an asset to some degree. And if they foreclose, then it is a liability, even though they own a valuable piece of property. So there's all kinds of bookkeeping reasons why developers can go on in this way and hold onto properties for a very long time under these economic conditions. So thank you very much for listening.
By the way, Wendy, just as a quick aside, that is quite articulate. Maybe if we have this clinic on the weekends, we can have you out there doing a little education on that. That is quite insightful on real estate finance. I must tell you, that's very keen. I don't throw that around lightly. That was very keen.
Thank you very much.
An explanation, I might add. I see the shout out from Andrew. Very much so. That was very articulate. That was quite informative for me.
That was really
quite informative for me.
Thank you.
Ima?
Yeah, I was just going to say back to Rita's point regarding our situation here at Normandy Court. We do have a lawsuit. We're now waiting to get we're waiting to get the filing date from the lawyers so that we could have a press conference and maybe call out the landlords and have the electeds maybe more vocal. So that's on its way. And we have, according to our lawyers, a 90% chance of winning the case, because they have all sorts of things that they didn't do or dates that they gave, wrote up wrong on our riders. So we're looking forward to that. But what do we do until then? We have about 3 or 4 families that have moved out of the complex already because they couldn't take the rents. They moved. Most of these people have moved out of state, Minnesota. We have 3 families that left already. So on that note, and also it's a shame that CSS isn't here today, because they created a big report on warehousing. So, what they do with the land and the apartment buildings that they're warehousing without any penalties.
The management. I see we're about an hour in, and I was going to say, I know Greg, he and I talked about, we want to touch also on the hotel conversion into apartments as an issue, I think, on that. But whatever we come up with resolution wise, just for this one moment, I would like to at least have us concretely talk about doing something with Normandy, maybe on the weekends with your tenants. And I don't know if that's a resolution or something that we get back with you on, Greg and I, because I would like to move the agenda. I know it's already 7:30. We've been talking about this and we haven't got to conversions yet. I know we were talking about that, or we can stay on this, but
Yeah, and even that, I would say, the note on that was that Eric Adams, our likely mayor, next mayor, was talking this past week about affordable housing options, specifically hotel conversions. And there's not much more to say about it at this point. I'd rather kind of stay in this
Oh, well,
pocket, but I just wanted to note
Yeah.
that was something that had come up.
Okay.
But just as a because we are an hour in, I think it's a good time to sort of, a 1 minute recap here. I mean, in terms of action items, holding the electeds accountable for sharing with us progress on the, the rental assistance, supporting the folks at Normandy Court. We need to look into the warehousing. We've got that vacant lot we've identified, is trying to learn a little bit more about that. So we've already got 4 or 5 sort of action items that I think it would be beneficial for us as housing committee co-chairs to take a look at and think about, and then make the practice of following up on between now and our next meeting. And I'm going to throw one additional one out, because we were talking about quality of life and we were talking about it specific to the vacant lot that is overgrown. And I just want to make one note while I can here, and it's an item I think this committee should take on as well, as we think about how we support the rental assistance, Normandy Court, the vacant lot issue. I just want to note as well, those of you who know my professional life, I'm the executive director of Stanley Isaacs Neighborhood Center, and we're physically embedded within the Isaacs Homes public housing development. And I just wanted to make note for you, and this is a topic that's come up in the past, but I think we need an action item here. And it's related to the number of messages we've gotten, in particular, I think in the last week, from residents of the Isaacs Homes development. And it ranging from power outages, hot water outages, the elevator issue, which got some social media attention over the last day or so, waiting for some inspection to happen while the elevator's offline, residents who have all sorts of needs, not being able to access the building, all elevators being out, one elevator being out, multiple elevators being out, while hot water and power issues. And so the specific action item here, I would suggest, is that we as a committee begin to hold, as best we can, our electeds in NYCHA accountable, or at least be working towards trying to get almost like a regular report from folks who live in the development, but more specifically probably from NYCHA and others, as to what the status of work orders is, what's the timeliness of work orders, and for us as a committee to be leaning into the idea of these things it's not acceptable for something to be out for a day. It's not acceptable for folks to have multiple power outages in a day. And for us to be positioning ourselves to hold our elected officials, the state agency, NYCHA, and others accountable for addressing these really extraordinary needs that are addressing quality of life in the development. So I wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if folks have reactions or thoughts about that, but I wanted to add that as an action item to follow up on.
I like that. I personally like it. I think it's great. I right off the top of my head, I was thinking, what you had said, we could draft up something, send it to Will and to Russell. Maybe it just becomes like the Andy Dufresne letter in what was that movie? We kept writing, asking for money. We just keep sending that letter every month. We just kick it out there every month. Like, we would like to know this information. Here's the letter. You articulated the information very well. We kick it over to Russell, Will at the board office. The chair sends it out, sends it to whoever. And every month, like Andy Dufresne, we just keep politely asking, can we get this information? Can we get this information? We would like this report.
And if it's okay, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but I see Sandrea's hand is up, and I'm on social media in particular. Sandrea, I know you were sort of pointing to some issues, as you always do, that need to be addressed immediately. I was going to ask if maybe you wanted to weigh in after my comment. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I see your hand up, so I was hoping maybe you might want to jump in.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I had to switch devices, so I'm on my phone. My iPad died. But anyway, yeah, so it's really bad over here. And, just the fact that, we have the Sandy money from the federal government, for FEMA, for the generators, and now all of a sudden, the elevators that are literally 6 years old are constantly breaking down. We've had electrical outages. Of course, the elevator outages, no heat, no hot water. And as many know, December 13th of 2019, about 30 residents sued NYCHA for HP action lawsuit, housing parts lawsuit. So, I mean, we're making noise still. We still have an active case in court. And literally it's inspection after inspection. Take Root Justice as our attorneys. They actually asked for NYCHA to be found in contempt. The judge would not allow it, and all she did was continue. They're doing inspections after inspections, like the elevator that you're probably referencing to, which is recent. PE1, it's out. They did an inspection yesterday. The elevator is still not working. They found a damaged cable. They've done inspections on these elevators numerous times, so it's at a point that I tell people we are the new Flint, and sadly the Mitchell-Lamas are turning into NYCHA in a way that how you're being, how your homes are being cared for and stuff like that. And it's a reality. Like if it didn't happen yet, it's bound to, with the way that people are taking care of our needs when we're paying. You pay your rent, you're entitled to repairs, you're entitled to humane living conditions, and it's really becoming bad, and no one's being held accountable. It would be nice if the community board eventually will be able to help us out with maybe a letter. I mean, Congresswoman Carla Maloney was over here. She did a walkthrough with us a couple of months back. She sent a letter to NYCHA. I mean, everyone knows what's going on, not just here, but we're speaking of this development, and it's just going on a deaf ear. And it's also the health conditions. People are living with mold and lead, and our kids are being poisoned with lead. And we hear about the lead, but then no one thinks to get the adult tested as well, because adults, they might be sitting here with headaches, and they have the lead poison too. Because if your child have it, you might have it as well. So whatever the community board can do, and for my colleague on the board from Normandy Court, if you need someone to help you with a press conference or a rally or something like that, I'm right here for you, because I know how to do all of that stuff. I could help, get it done, help you out, support you. You have my support, because this is just
Yeah, I mean, this is what. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. No, really, Sandra, that really is. I mean, that's sort of something else. I think, Greg and I were talking about this before the meeting. We're chatting about this. Is that it's going to take everyone. I know Alita's talked about this too, in terms of we as a committee talked about working with other community boards. You've got to find a way to get critical mass, and bringing together Stanley Isaacs, Normandy. Well, it's the only way. To make this the voice louder. So, whatever is, whatever we can do to shake things up, because clearly what we've been doing up heretofore isn't getting us, as I say, it's getting us to the 2-yard line. Rita, please.
Right.
Stop
And sadly, there's no accountability. That's the problem. Even when you use the court system, in forest houses in the Bronx, many of you heard the name Eleanor Bumpers. She was killed, the old elderly lady in the Bronx many years ago. Her great-granddaughter has her namesake. Her great-granddaughter lives in forest houses. Her child was poisoned with lead and NYCHA in forest houses. They moved her to a new apartment. That apartment had lead too. NYCHA is literally committing crimes, and no one is holding them accountable. And that's one of the problems, So, we're wondering, who's going to really see about the residents, because some chronic conditions people have, they're not getting it possibly from their job. They're getting it from their living conditions. And I was on the worst landlord list last year with my bathroom was featured, and it's still the same. And we're going into December, and they broke my wall 2 years ago. And I can't let them come in and break my wall again during COVID. But they haven't even tried to come in and fix my bathroom. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sandra.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
No, thank you.
Rita? Rita, I think you're
When I first joined Mitchell Lama Coalition at the borough president's office, it was C. Virginia Fields at the time. There was a leader there who, unfortunately, she is no longer with us, Louise Sanchez, and she had exactly what Sandra is talking about regarding Concourse Village, which is a very large development on the concourse in the Bronx. They got tired of years of this, so they had rent strike. That doesn't mean you don't pay your rent. You do pay your rent. You put it into an escrow account and you hire the repair people from that account. You pay it for them. We have been hearing, and my heart breaks, for 12 years of no heat. Today I was thinking, oh my God, it's almost October. They're not going to have heat again. No heat, no water, no elevator, mold. But 12 years. So can we assume that NYCHA is not capable of doing anything? I have an article that, remember when the heating was out for like many months in the winter, and they never looked at the heating until September. But at any rate, I have that article where somebody from the New York Times shadowed the repair person who was hired by NYCHA to fix a boiler. And the reporter said, "What are you looking for?" And the person turned to him and said, "I have no idea. I don't fix boilers." But NYCHA will have it down that they sent somebody to fix the boiler. That's why it doesn't get fixed. It's not that it's not fixable. It's just that they're not sending the material. They're not sending the people who are capable of doing the job because they don't really care. They're the most inhuman agency ever. So am I advocating for it? In my heart, I am. I'm not telling people to go out on rent strike, but I honestly feel that, you want to help people stay in their apartment. How about let's keeping these people living in a decent apartment? And when are we going to stop hearing the elevator, the water, the paint, the mold, and no heat? 12 years? I think 12 years is enough. That's just my take on it. I do a rent strike.
If you were looking for me to get on the other side of that, I'm not.
Thank you, Rita. Alita Camp.
Thank you. When they wanted to put up that Fetner project at homes, the federal government was required to weigh in on it in some way. There was a New York City application. So in some ways, the federal government kind of oversees some of this, and I'm not sure how it works, but I'm wondering if getting Carolyn Maloney or Chuck Schumer or any of the people from anywhere in New York City, because NYCHA is all over the place, to look at this and see if there's something that could be done. Biden seemed more interested. Now, unfortunately, under every administration, Democrat and Republican for decades, the amount of money going to public housing has decreased. But maybe there's something, if people have big hearts, that would inspire some kind of oversight, because there isn't any. It would be like the city suing itself, because clearly NYCHA is in violation of many, many health and sanitation and all kinds of codes, but nothing is ever done. What other organization could mismanage billions of dollars and the person isn't fired for years and they get away with it? So it makes no sense. I'd also caution, though, the city's crazy ideas about building that Fetner project. And my understanding is he has not gone away. And the RAD's over on the west side and all around, where it's, again, this public-private partnership, but where private is not always working in the public interest. And just in the idea of upzoning, my understanding from the plan in the Soho NoHo plan is that they get more height, they get more bulk. They don't even have to build affordable housing there. They could put it in a fund. And maybe that's something they could put money into a fund to build affordable housing someplace else is what I read, I thought, on the city planning website. But maybe something else that we could do is try, and I don't know if we have any ability to do this or if there's any interest in doing this, but rather than encouraging this so-called private investment, is to have developers put money into funds when and we know that people don't tell the truth about rent controlled or rent regulated tenants, because Kushner, whatever his first name is, the son-in-law of the previous occupant, whose name I still can't say, he lied about how many units were there when it came to taxes. He said none. And then he lied, and then he said there were a lot when it came to something else. So we don't have any real records of it, and people don't tell the truth. There needs to be accountability on all levels. So it's a lot of issues, and I'm sorry for raising all of these, but there has to be some way of doing something, because whatever it is, people who need rent regulated housing, middle income housing, lower income, are just not getting it, whether it's with private partnerships or the government or something else. And if they get it, the conditions are so abysmal that I can't imagine that they would be able to exist in almost any other country. So that's that. Thank you for your patience.
Sure.
Thank you.
Son.
How about we go with Andrew? Why don't we go Andrew next, and then Sandra?
Yeah, I just wanted to bounce off Alita's point there when she said the city suing itself. Maybe this is a matter we go to the Attorney General's office for, because maybe they can look into, I mean, the mismanagement and the oopsie doopsie, where did the $1 billion go? Sounds like a pretty substantial lawsuit idea. And it would definitely be attention grabbing. It'd do good for the people in those residences. And it would set a precedent for lost oopsie doopsie public housing money for all over the country. New Yorkers like to lead on these issues, and this might be a good place to start.
Thank you for that, Andrew. And I think it leads to, when we talk about our action items, the way in which we have to think about addressing things immediately, if they're possible, or things you can take quick steps to try to get some clarity on or information on. And then there's the other piece, which is balancing that out with big picture, broader strokes. And I think for this committee, we probably want to do both for every action item we can think of. Sandra?
Okay, yeah, so I'll be very brief. So sadly, everyone knows about NYCHA, right? All the elected officials, no one does not know about NYCHA, even if they don't have a NYCHA development in their district. But sadly, there's a lot of blind eyes. And the one thing is hard, as you know, the police cannot police the police, right? So these elected officials, and nobody wants to hit the top. Like when the former chair was able to resign instead of somebody being held accountable in a fact of a criminality with the lead poisoning, she was able to resign, which is unheard of. They let her resign and nobody was held accountable. And there was a 150-page report that was done regarding lead in her tenure, what was going on. Secondly, many know NYCHA was declared a state of emergency. I'm losing the dates now. I don't know if it was 2018 or 2019, but it was declared a state of emergency by former Governor Cuomo. And what we got was a federal monitor installed. Yes, that was good, but all he does is he does the suggestions. He has investigators on the ground. I sat in 250 Broadway with his team. There are two attorneys and another lady, I forgot her name. And they have investigators. They have retired NYPD cops and stuff on the ground investigating the developments to find out what's going on he makes a suggestion. He does a report every quarter, but that's it. NYCHA does not have to follow these suggestions. So you have a federal monitor in place that we thought was going to help us, but in fact, it's just more paper just being generated, right? Because nothing has been done. So I just wanted to say that, like, it's a lot of blind eyes. And until people really look at people in public housing as human beings that are suffering, and their first responders, municipality workers, like I'm former from the NYPD, we make this city run. And, you know, everybody's not, you know, people look at public housing as a certain level. There's a mix of incomes. We have people with 6 figures living in public housing. So, and we have people with low incomes and retired, but the money's not the point. We are supposed to be living in better conditions, and we're not. And something has to be done. There is an urgency. The state of emergency that we were declared means nothing because the conditions have exacerbated. I've been fighting against privatization since 2015. We were asking for $2 billion to save NYCHA. Now we're at 40 billion. So if you look at just that time span of years that nothing was done. So we need the help. We need community boards. We need elected. We really need people to step up, because if not, NYCHA's a huge voting block. We vote them in, we're going to have to vote them out. That's it.
It's Andrea, you're channeling exactly. Greg, were you tapped into Greg and my conversation before we had the meeting here? Because I think that he and I were talking the same talk. Exactly.
I'm lucky enough to get to see Sandrea from time to time. We talk a lot, and those are always the most productive conversations I have.
You're absolutely right. You know, because the same thing. You know, they have it. It's a different topic, but the same idea. You have that thing at Rikers. Everybody knows about it. Everybody's going like this, and it's all, and nothing's getting done. And there's a lot of trees are dying, and nothing is actually getting done. So,
well, let's. I think we make the progress in terms of the needs of residents specific to NYCHA. That it's a state of emergency. It should be a standing. Let's make it a standing item agenda at our housing committee meetings. We'll figure out how we use that or think about that in relation to the board meetings. I think Normandy Court falls into that as well. These are significant concerns in the development in the neighborhood. And let's make these standing items, and that we're getting progress, we're following up. And let's think about what the accountability is in the short term. And then let's also think about long-term strategies. Peggy Price, I see your hand up.
Hi, thanks very much. Andrea is 100% right, and I fully support all of her points. I just wanted to mention something else about affordable housing generally. So despite being illegal in many cases, short-term rentals are prevalent in New York City, including on the Upper East Side. And the reason, of course, that they're illegal is that they take away, one of the reasons is they take away available housing from people who need it, who actually live here. So it appears that very little, if anything, is being done about this short-term rental problem. And it seems to me that we ought to bring that up if we're looking for ways to increase the supply of affordable housing. I don't understand why Airbnbs and others are getting away with this when we are here talking so much about what are we going to do to increase the supply of housing that people can actually pay for. So, I mean, is there anything that we can do? Can we make that an action item, or?
Let's look in, we'll add that one to the list of things to follow up on, adding it to my list of action items here. We'll add that one too, to see if there's any information we can gather, any strategies we can come up with, any action items. And of course, as I noted in the beginning, Vic Bach and Sam Stein will join us. And again, we can tee all these items up for them too, and they can help us think about them as well.
Thanks.
Ed, I think we've got a long list of follow-up items to take with this group. I think it's I feel like we have a commitment to follow up on all of them, and some of these need to happen before the next housing committee meeting. And so I feel like that's our next job, if that's fair with you.
Yeah, you tell you what, I just got distracted. My wife made me very I got a little sandwich here. Sorry, for a brief moment. Sorry, Peggy. I was listening, but getting my sandwich. Greg, what I have, I write like all over the place. My notes are all over the place. I got them, but they're not laid out. Yours are probably much neater. If you lay out our action items, because again, time management here for us. I don't know if we need a resolution so much as just to let you know what we're going to be doing. Emma, you'll be getting calls from us for sure. Don't even think you're not getting calls about what's happening. But Greg, lay out what we have.
Yeah, I mean, the
where
things
we're
I
going.
heard, and folks can tell me if, what I'm missing here. But look, we started this conversation on the emergency rental assistance. We need updates, we need clarity, we need data. We're gonna have to figure out what we can get. We need to start some planning for some workshops to give people some valuable information about the rental assistance opportunities, and start putting that in motion. I'm hearing that there is a commitment to having a regular standing item related to the progress, the state of emergency in public housing. I'm hearing regular follow-ups in terms of support of the Normandy Court folks. I'm also hearing that there's a question on the table, what do we know about warehousing? What do we know about that vacant lot down that was flagged earlier? And of course, the short-term rentals that we need to get some more information on as well, and what we can do to get involved in that. So that's my quick rundown. Now, I'll be doing the minutes for this as well, and this meeting's recorded so I can make sure we're not missing anything. But that's a list of 6 or 8 items, some related to some short-term action steps, some related to some broader stroke sort of pieces. But I feel like the accountability is to making progress on all of the above.
Great. Obviously, we're not trying to drive the bus from the chair spot. We'd like it organically from the committee. But I don't know if we need a resolution so much. What we have left, if anybody has any ideas, but we take those things with the committee. The committee's on board. We follow up. Greg and I, obviously, folks, who we're going to be calling and following up with. Is there anything else anybody has with respect to this? Again, just the general idea of identifying these issues, but let's try to actually, something that just moves the ball, in some tangible way. Anything that anybody last thoughts, ideas, action items. Again, out there, if you think we need a resolution, but I don't know if it's necessarily a need of a resolution, but I throw it out there to anybody in the committee who wants to, but I don't think there is resolutionary worthy stuff per se. Thoughts? No?
Well, it seems to me like we take these, we run with them, we report back, and we turn this into the next steps and everything we're going to report back on, and try to take some steps in between now and our next committee meeting on some of these as well.
Does that work for the group? I don't see anybody with a big thumbs down on that one. Thank you, Russell, with a big thumbs up all around. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Barbara. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, everybody. May we see you there? I see your picture. I don't see you, but I see you there at the bottom of my screen. You may be on high on something else. All right.
And by the way, please keep our fellow co-chair in your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Wish you
Thank
well.
you. Yes, absolutely. Okay. I guess we entertain any appropriate motions. I think everybody knows what we're searching for here. So my law professor would say, and that would be the motion to anybody out there. He used to do that with the elements of the crime. He would say,
adjourn. I see folks waving. I think we have seconds. I see a read.
All right.
Seconds.
Oh,
All in
okay.
favor.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.